Hey, what's up, and welcome to the video. This is, well, the second Yumiko guide I've posted now. I posted my first one in the very beginning of 2020, and now I'm working on this script as April Fool's Rule right around the corner in 2022. Back then, I felt as if I knew enough about the character to make a basic guide, however, now I see how much I was missing about the character. 2 years later, with a lot more knowledge gained, I feel as if this needed some revisiting. In a long time in the making after this idea, this video is now up as you're obviously watching it, so welcome. My name is Ravel44, and this is an extensive guide on how to use Yumiko Revisited. In May 3, 2017, Yumiko was added as a new legend for Brawlhalla in patch 2.59. Wielding the bow and hammer, she was a character added pretty early in the game, way earlier than the time I started playing. Ever since release, she's never been one of the most popular characters in the game, with having a 2% play rate on average and very little tournament usage or success. Which is of course why I'm here. Ever since I started maining her in 2019, I've always enjoyed playing the character. Her dynamic weapon composition between a light and heavy weapon, along with her quick agility and dexterity, allowed for some fast and light play that was able to take me quite far once learned. And I'd like to share some of this knowledge with you, because whether you're picking her up because Bow is meta right now, or simply because she's one of your favorite characters. While watching the video, feel free to pause and take a look at some of the techniques demonstrated, and if you'd like to practice some of them during or after the video, go right ahead. Yumiko is a legend wielding the bow and hammer, and along with her high attack and dexterity, she comes with some pretty low attack and defense stats. This puts her into the archetype of pressure-based characters. Throughout the many different characters available in Brawlhalla, the different stats spread throughout characters, along with their weapon combination, ultimately split them into different archetypes. An example of this would be Teros and Zul being punishing characters, with their high attack and heavy weapons allowing for quick damage buildup. Wushang and Koji being frame trap characters, with their high dexterity allowing for multiple moves to be thrown out with little to no damage buildup, and etc. While Yumiko has very similar stats to other legends such as Kaya and even Hattori, she has key features that make her stand out from all other legends. For one, she's one of the only 2 bow legends that have a heavy weapon as her secondary, and what I believe to be the most obvious change, her D-Sigs. Both a down sig on her bow and hammer throw out 3 projectiles that linger even after whiff, and that sets up for some amazing pressure potential. Whether it's for adding some extra pressure on an opponent in the air, or catching and punishing a dash attack, her signatures, while niche, allow for some of the most utilization in the game when used correctly. Before we get into all of that though, it's first best to start with the basics. As a character we're learning here wields both hammer and bow, the first place to start learning her is in the basics of her weapons. Let's start with bow first. Starting off with the lighter of her 2 weapons, let's get into some basic bow tips. Recapping over the move kit real quick, you're going to have 8 basic moves in total. D-Light, N-Light, Sight-Light for your ground options, Nair, Sair, and Dare for your aerial kit. And finally, Recovery and Ground Pound for your heavier attacks. Assuming you know what all these moves do already, I'm going to start off with some basic combos that are applicable to your weapon. When using bow, your main combo starter is going to be D-Light. It's a long-ranged, arrow-flinging attack that can set up into all sorts of finishers, such as D-Light N-Light, D-Light Sair, D-Light Recovery, D-Light Nair, or even D-Light Ground Pound. It's a great move to punish with, and nets you the most guaranteed damage, while at the same time keeping a good range and being quick. Sight-Light will be your closer range option, mainly being used as an offense option or simply a move to punish in close range with. While there are no reliable true combo options with Sight-Light unless Ground can be cancelled into Nair, it sets up very well for further moves in the future, such as D-Light or even the Side Stick. N-Light is... well, simply put, N-Light is busted. It's an anti-air with 8 startup frames, or in simpler forms, it takes just a little over 1/10 of a second to come out. While it may be a little on the slower side to recover upon whiff, it serves its purpose great as a rapid anti-air to punish your opponent's movement, rendering yourself unpunishable, as he's forced to either land far away from you or risk getting hit landing close. Did I mention it also has Enlight Nair as a one-frame dodge combo? Yeah, it's pretty busted. Coming up on your aerial attacks, we have the previously mentioned moves of Sair, Dair, and Nair. Let's start with what I believe is one of not only the best moves on Bow, but one of the best moves in the game. Neutral air on Bow is absolutely ridiculous. While in the air, you can throw out a hitbox that covers where you are, along with slightly above you as well. While this hitboxing isn't as big as Downlight on Bow or a combo starter, what makes the move so good is that you have full drift control when throwing it out. This means that you can move freely while doing the move, keeping the same speed as if you were simply moving around without an attack. This move is one of the hardest I've seen to punish, and while everything is punishable in theory, this move is, from my experience, a free move to throw out. Hitting a neutral air while having no true combos as well can lead to juggling opportunities with anti-air such as neutral light and recovery. It launches your opponent directly above you, which will always put you in an advantage state. Side air is also a move that's really good. It basically acts as a sidelight on Bow, except you're in the air, with its small horizontal hitbox and launching potential. While this move is basic enough on its own, it has the most combo potential out of any of the aerial moves, with Sair going into sidelight, Sair into Enlight Nair, and Sair into Dair, all being reliable options to go for, depending on your situation. And lastly, you have Down Air. It's a move that shoots an arrow diagonally down. While this move is very niche in my opinion, it's a move that has a lot of force. Some of the best uses for Down Air on Bow would be to punish a ground pound off stage, or to catch a dash-in attack while you're aerial. While Down Air also has no true combos, it has follow-ups which include Dair into Sair, Dair into Nair, Dair into ground pound, and in the right situations, even Dair into Enlight and Sidelight. I suppose the last two moves to cover would be Bow Recovery and Ground Pound. Both of these moves are heavier moves, with less to explain about them, so let's go over them quickly. Bow Recovery is the rising heavy move for Bow, which shoots in the diagonal direction. Upon hit, it grabs your opponent and sends them diagonally. While it sounds simple enough, I believe it's a very good move to throw out for a similar reason to Bow Nair. When thrown out, Bow Recovery travels a huge distance. Even upon whiff, the move is very hard to punish because a large area is covered within a short amount of time. Depending on the health your opponent is at, a Bow Recovery may have a follow-up with Recovery into Enlight, or even Recovery Enlight into another Recovery. The final move to cover here is Ground Pound. If you played Brawlhalla at all for over an hour, you would know what Ground Pounds are, and this one is just about the same as every other weapon Ground Pound. With a somewhat slow velocity and a hitbox only directly below it, it makes up for those mediocre stats with a ton of force. This move, for the most part, is best only used off stage like most ground pounds and has follow-ups that include Dair and even a second ground pound. That's going to wrap it up for the Bow section, at least for Yumiko's basic attacks. Bow is a fantastic damage builder and an all-around weapon. However, there is one part of the game that Bow struggles at, and that is killing your enemy. This is where Yumiko's other weapon comes into play. Wielding the grapple hammer, let's get into Yumiko's heavier weapon, mostly used to confirm kills, while at the same time maintaining its infamous status as a very fast killer. With Hammer, you're going to have all the same light attack notation as Bow, so let me show them all here on screen real quick. Now that we've done a quick recap, let's go into what the moves actually do. Starting off with D-Light on Hammer, it's going to be your main combo starter just like Bow. It's a close range stomp that hits in front of you, with its main gimmick being combo potential. Downlight has a multitude of combos available from hitting this move, such as Downlight Sidelight, Downlight Dare, Downlight Recovery, and even Downlight into GCN Light, with all of these different combos being the most ideal for specific scenarios. With that being said, all of these pale in comparison to the universal Hammer True combo, the Stomp Sair. When using Hammer, this is going to be your bread and butter, your tried and true killing combo. For new Yumiko mains, just picking up the character and the weapon, I can't stress enough how important this combo is. Being able to recognize a situation where you can punish a missed move with this combo will quickly rack up a lot of damage. While this combo does take a little bit of time to learn, it will quickly pay off once the input is learned. Lastly, there are even true combos when gravity cancelling D-Light. Combos that will work when gravity cancelling include D-Light Nair and D-Light into Chase Dodge Recovery. Being able to list 7 true combos off of one move is absolutely insane, and that's only one of the moves on Hammer. Let's go on to the next one. Neutral Light on Hammer is a quick option that hits stacked with fairly long startup frames, but quick recovery frames to compensate. In my opinion, I think this is the worst move on Hammer. While still not a bad move of course, the purpose of it is very obvious and it is to hit lead directly stacked. Doing so will put your opponent in a 3-piece attack, pushing them away from you. At 0 damage taken, this move can also true combo into Dash Sidelight, along with the much more applicable combo Weapon Thrown to End Light. Overall, this is a move that can provide a good space advantage upon hit, but I believe the move should only be used in situations you know it will land. The next grounded move on Hammer serves a lot more purposes much more effectively. Sidelight on Hammer is a very simple attack. It's a move that propels you forward and smacks someone with the side. While this may seem basic, it derives its strength from being very fast and covering a lot of distance. While it may not seem like it, a dash sidelight can travel very far across the stage. It's a lot less committal than using D-Light and can be used to edgeguard very well if used right. Sidelight on Hammer has no true combos, but its follow-ups are plentiful, ranging from Sidelight to D-Light Sair, Sidelight to Endlight, Sidelight to Dash Jump Sair, Sidelight to Chase Dodge Nair. The possibilities allow for a combination to catch any dodge, or even completely reset neutral if you feel like it. These attributes in conjunction with the good frame data move are what lead me to believe that this is the most underrated move on Hammer. Now though, we're getting into the aerial attacks. To start off, let's discuss one of the trademark, most complained about moves on this weapon. And for good reason too. Sair on Hammer is a very straightforward move. It's an aerial attack that hits to the side of you and pushes your opponent away. This move is definitely one of the easier ones to pick up, and the main reason it's pretty strong is just because it has a big hitbox, fast recovery times, and the ability to kill as well. In lower ranks such as Gold and Silver, you can get pretty far just by jumping around close to your opponent and spamming Sair, whether it's on bow or hammer. However, in higher ranks I would recommend against this as it's very punishable if used excessively. In my opinion, this is a better move thrown up in the air to read an opponent's fall or to pressure your opponent in the air because its low recovery time renders it almost unpunishable if thrown out in the air. While Sair doesn't have a consistent true combo, it can true combo into Endlight at low healths with Yumiko. If you do land the falling Sair, this will be the move you want to go for. It has strings such as Sair D-Light Sair, Sair D-Light Recovery, and even the deadly, well let's just call it the Reviled combo. Allow me to demonstrate. But yeah, Sair is a great move. As long as you don't get caught spamming it too much, it's an essential mix-up to throw out in high-level gameplay. With 2 more aerials to cover, you have the very broken Nair coming up next. Just like bow, I believe this is the best singular move on Hammer, even more so than D-Light. Let's list some of its properties real quick. Serving its purpose as an anti-air, it's a move that swings high above you with really quick startup frames. It hits directly up as most Nairs do, and this alone allows for a lot of juggling potential. The things that make this move really stand out though are 2. Number 1, it has drift control. Do you remember what I talked about in the bow Nair section about how you can move while actively throwing this move out? Yeah, this is already a good feature to a move, as there are some moves that already can't do that. The ability to move while you throw out an attack makes you much harder to punish, and this is a key feature of what makes this move so amazing. The second that's worth talking about is that it's an anti-air that hits grounded, which means you can hit it directly on top of your opponent. With such big hitboxing, it makes for a quick, fast move on hammer when used correctly, which is quite counterintuitive to its heavy weapon status, but hey, we're not complaining. If it's broken, abuse it. Nair on hammer doesn't have much true combos at all, at least none that I really know of. However, strings are still there, with some simple ones being nair into recovery, nair into nair, or nair into desync. There are also hard reads that can be attempted, such as nair into nsync sair, but at that point it's probably better to reset neutral. And then you have Dair. To be honest, you just throw it out and you just pick them up with it? After this many games, I still don't know how to use it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad move. It's just there aren't many specific usages I can find for it when it's always the best move. I usually like to throw it out whenever I predict that my opponent is going to attack me on the ground, and I combine it with a dash jump attack to pick them up, or whenever they're just below me? You know what, let's actually ask someone more knowledgeable on the subject. Switching to a conversation real quick. There we go, that refreshed my memory. A couple of other good situations would be to X-pivot it on edge when opponents are wall hugging, as it's a safe option that can scoop up opponents, that's very hard to punish, and due to its low recovery frames can also be X-pivoted on stage to catch a dash in. Dair on hammer combos into just about the same things as nair on hammer, with combos such as dair into nair, dair into recovery, and dair into desig. It's pretty much identical. Just be careful about throwing this move out, because with improper usage, a whiff will leave you on the ground, open to a punish. And just like every other weapon, you have ground pound and recovery on hammer. The ground pound on hammer is even more simple than a ground pound on bow, so let's just breeze it over real quick. Ground pound on hammer is a hard-hitting, big hitbox to move that provides a lot of force when sending your opponent down. The only real applicable use of this move is just use it off stage, when you see a big opening that your opponent will be directly below you. Dash jumping into ground pound is often a good way to recover opponents just returning back to stage, and hitting the move alone can provide a big shift in your opponent's stock. After you hit a ground pound, you basically have three options. You can simply reset neutral, go for a falling sair to read their jump, or fish for a recovery. In my opinion, you should choose your option based on how dire your situation is. If you're at an advantage state with health, there's no need to risk your lead, and you can simply wait for your opponent to rise again to land another attack. On the other hand, if you're behind, you'll definitely want to go for an early kill off stage to even the lead. Jump reads such as falling sair after ground pound and recovery can further push your opponent outwards and downwards, but are quite risky upon whiff. Be sure to choose your options wisely, as offstage is one of the most intense parts of the game. Last but definitely not least, you have recovery. Hammer's recovery is unique in the sense that it acts as a reversal move. Scooping up an opponent that's above you, then putting them down, it acts as a move that would be more suited towards gauntlets, with the most similar move being Gauntlet Nair. Because of this unique trait, Hammer Recovery becomes a very viable on-stage move. I personally enjoy throwing Hammer Recovery out when I see my opponents in the air and can't land a direct shot on them. Throwing myself up to their altitude with recovery as well often throws them off, and if it lands, drags them back down to the ground. This puts a huge amount of pressure on them and often allows for a nasty bait. Something that I really like doing when landing a hammer recovery on stage is doing chase dodge down into jump. This is an amazing fake out that works even on diamond players because it takes advantage of their fear of chase dodge down sair. Many will often throw out a move or a dodge in panic attempting to catch your landing, but you can punish their miss with a simple landing sair afterwards. If they don't fall for it, it's completely safe as well. The second usage for hammer recovery is pretty obvious. It's an offstage gimper. I'm sure most of you know about this tactic, so I'm going to keep it brief. The best way to use this move is either to interrupt your opponent's recovery back to stage, or to use it when they're finished recovering back to stage to restart the process all over again. Let me give some examples to demonstrate. With so much uses available from this one simple move, this makes Hammer Recovery one of my favorite moves on Yumiko, allowing for a multitude of kill confirms once mastered. And lastly, for a part that's completely non-scripted, I forgot to add this in while making the script, but offstage, if you do use Hammer into Chase Dodge Down Sair, this is a combo that can really push your opponent outwards as it always reads a jump read. I recommend going for this combo a lot because out of panic your opponent will often try to jump a lot, and this catches in very many healths, especially the later ones, so this is something I really recommend doing. Alright, that's both of the basic moves down for Bow and Hammer, and wow, I'm surprised that I had so much to say about some basic moves. Sadly though, it isn't over just yet. After all, we're not reviewing a Bow and Hammer legend, we're reviewing Yumiko. While her weapon combination alone is enough to make for a good character, we haven't reviewed the most unique part of her, so strap in. Just like before, start off with Bow first. Ensig on Bow is a straight shot that shoots in a 45-degree angle and teleports Yumiko to where she shoots. In my first Yumiko guide, I listed off Ensig as a great recovery tool, which still stands true to this day, but had also written it off as a mediocre signature. This is something I had changed my mind on. If I had to put it in a tier list for Yumiko signatures, I would probably place it around here. Something that makes Yumiko much different than other characters is that almost all of her signatures are very unique. She's not like other conventional characters such as Bodvar, where all hammer or sword signatures can hit right in front of them. Each one of her heavy attacks excels in very specific situations, and it's my job to tell you the general moments you want to use them. I guess, if I had to describe Ensig, I would say it stands out in two areas. Number one, it provides the most force out of any of the Yumiko bow signatures. If you have a hard read on your opponent's jump, such as if you catch their dodge with a sidelight, and know if they're going to jump, this may be the most optimal punish. Other options, such as Sair into Ensig, may also be a good mix-up every once in a while, as Bow Ensig is only punishable if your opponent is expecting it. Secondly, Yumiko Bow's Ensig is an amazing recovery tool back to stage. Being able to delay yourself off stage for longer and travel further than an ordinary dodge would let you is a tool that can come in very handy in all ELOs of the game. Going further into it, what makes Yumiko Ensig so special is the fact that it puts the pressure on the opponent to guess what you're going to do correctly. If your opponent is attempting to secure an edge guard and you could either dodge or Ensig back to the stage, it will become impossible for him to tell which option you're going to use. You simply have to fall into the habit of mixing your recovery options up, ideally saving your dodge for last to allow for either option back to stage. The art of offstage is something impossible to truly master, but being able to consistently use this move as a tool to get back on stage is something that will be a huge help, as this is one of the main purposes of this move. The next signature I'm going to cover is Yumiko's most versatile sig, by far, being the only sig that actually hits in front of her like a normal sig. Because of this, it will also be the easiest one to explain. The uses of this signature are pretty self-explanatory. You can throw it out like a normal attack to kill, or go for optimized reads with this signature. Combos such as Sidelight into Side Sig, or Sair into Side Sig to read a forward or spot dodge, are some of the most optimal ones I can think right off the bat. There is one pretty cool thing about this move though, and it's that it has a really clean velocity and carries you with the sig, which also makes it viable for recovering back to stage, just like neutral signature. While learning to use the signature to recover isn't as big as learning neutral sig, being able to come back to stage with an attack is an option that's always good to keep handy. Even if you don't kill with it, hitting a side sig with Yumiko is always good, especially at later healths, because it sets up for some good kill confirm opportunities once your opponent is off stage, with options like weapon throw, dare, or ground pound. Since the signature is extremely straightforward, there isn't much to say about it. Just throw it out as a punish in general when your opponent is in killing percentage, or feel free to use it when attempting a hard read on opponents. The last bow signature to cover on Yumiko is D-Sig. Take a look at what I said in my previous guide really quick regarding this move. This is something I want to change. I originally thought this move sucked because of its insane recovery frames, but it becomes really hard to punish when used effectively. First off, let's start off by listing something special about it. It's the only signature to have multiple different consistent true combos out of hitting someone, and has the potential to build up damage if you catch a dodge. For the combos, you will have D-Sig into Enlight, D-Sig into Nair, D-Sig into Sair, and D-Sig into Recovery as the viable options. If you catch an opponent with the signature, its true combos will end up doing the most raw damage out of any Sig when combined with a light attack. Now, let's cover how to actually hit this Sig. The first way to use it properly is by using it on edge when your opponent is trying to recover back to stage. This much is obvious. You can't really get punished when doing this, however in higher level gameplay, this doesn't really do anything unless you're planning to surprise your opponent by suddenly engaging your opponent off stage with a dash jump. The second way I found myself using this Sig is either to throw it out to pressure my opponent's landing, or to fake out an opponent by approaching them, then gravity cancelling a D-Sig. This reads a panic jump, to which you can follow up with any of the true combos listed below. And lastly, something that can work every once in a while as a trick is just throwing a D-Sig out on the ground to create the illusion of safety and dash D-lighting on the ground. However, I highly recommend against this in higher elo gameplay. Of course, even through all these tips, the main rule of throwing out Sigs is if you know you can hit them, no matter the situation. So by all means, if you think you can hit what you're working with, throw it out. I'm simply listing all the situations that I find myself most commonly hitting these signatures. With those three out of the way, we can cover Hammer now. Yumiko's Hammer signatures all have similar trajectories to their bow counterparts, except each of Yumiko's signatures on Hammer are not traditional in the sense that it hits right in front of them. None of these signatures are optimal at all to throw out in raw neutral, but prove to be very effective when used in the right circumstances. Let me elaborate, starting with Neutral Sig on Yumiko's Hammer. Neutral Sig on Yumiko's Hammer has some very weird hitboxing, to say the least. I don't even think I can properly describe it very quickly, so let me showcase a video here real quick with some text for description. So now, let me describe some good situations to use N-Sig. The first most common situation that I use this move is to catch an opponent recovering to stage. Being able to pressure your opponent with moves such as Hammer Recovery and Sair, then finally being able to throw out an N-Sig if he manages to dodge all of them, will pull him back below stage. All of these options are tools you want to throw out off stage, so that your opponent will have to consider all of them when playing against you. If you do land an N-Sig, Weapon Throw into Unarmed Dare is a very good combo to go for, which can kill in later healths if you land all of it. And another combo, I should point out that's very situational. If you land an N-Sig on Yumiko at white healths on certain maps such as Brawlhaven, Enigma, or Miami Dome, you can initiate a Chase Dodge Down Dare into Turnaround Recovery into a true combo that should kill. This isn't really something you should tunnel vision over, but if you see the opportunity to land it, 3-second kill never hurt anyone. The second way I like to use it is to catch someone's dodge. Catching a dodge with Yumiko's N-Sig allows her follow-ups such as N-Sig Chase Dodge Sair into Dash D-Light Sair, N-Sig Chase Dodge Sair into Sidelight, or N-Sig Chase Dodge Sair into Dash Jump Sair later healths. I usually only go for this after landing a GC D-Light Nair, or if my opponent plans to panic jump after a Sidelight. Summarizing all of this, N-Sig generally only works as an anti-air, but serves its purpose amazingly as one. With its awesome gimmick potential and damaging strings on a burn dodge, it makes up for its inability to hit grounded with aerial dominance. Side-Sig on Yumiko is also one of a kind, in its own unique way. Side-Sig on Yumiko's Hammer has a huge range and is unreactable unless predicted. Due to its huge range, however, there is a dead spot in between Yumiko's start and end position for the signature where hitboxes are not thrown out. There are typically two situations I like to throw out this signature, but luckily they pop up a fair amount. The first situation that I use Side-Sig is gravity cancelling it back to stage to surprise my opponent, or to catch their landing when up high. It's just as simple as throwing it out when you think it will hit, but please be careful to only throw it out when you are almost positive it will hit. Whiffing this move will cost you your dodge and put you in a prime punishing position. I typically only like to throw this out in later healths, because when landing this move, I like to push my opponent far away to give myself space to recover and regain neutral. The second situation I enjoy throwing out side sig on hammer is to confirm an early kill off of Enlight off stage. This is also risky, however, because a whiff will leave you in a punishable position, but less so than burning your dodge on stage. I usually go for this option when trying to reclaim a lead, but there isn't much to say about this signature. It's a very hard-hitting but risky signature that should be thrown out at a long range when you know that hitting it will change the shift of a battle. With only one sig left to cover, let's get into the final hammer sig. Down sig is the one I find myself throwing out the most on Unico. Throwing out 3 orbs right above yourself much faster than bow D sig. This move is a preparatory sig. This is not something you usually throw out in raw neutral to initiate an attack, rather as something to put added pressure on your opponent. Let me tell you a secret about down sig. Sometimes the strength in it doesn't always lie in it hitting. Sometimes the pressure it adds is so great it leads to hitting your opponent that much easier. Let me show you how by going into the first example I to throw it out. The first good way to throw it out is just when anyone in general is high enough above you in the air. How will they punish you for throwing out this signature? You throw out a free force field, preventing your opponent from landing on a specific part of the stage, which is unpunishable. If your opponent doesn't fall right back into your D-sig, he'll either be forced to land to the side of the stage, off stage, or attempt to land back with an attack. All of these will capitalize on your advantage state and put you in a prime position for hitting someone. The 2 other ways I like to use this signature are either by slide charging it off stage, or throwing it out when someone is wall hooking, and it's for the same reason. Denying an area for your opponent to recover makes it that much easier to hit them, and the reward for this move landing is much greater than the risk for getting punished for it. D-Sig also has true combos just like its bow counterpart, with combos such as the basic D-Sig Nair, D-Sig Recovery, or D-Sig into GC N-Sig. If you're completely expecting it, it can output a lot of damage if landed, especially on a wasted dodge, with combos such as the Unico Mafia existing to capitalize on it. Finally, we finished all of Unico's moves and situations that I like to throw them out, but there's a little bit more to this than just simply knowing scenarios. Fighting in Brawlhalla isn't just a game where these specific scenarios to use these moves are repeated over and over again. Most of the battle is being able to set up these situations. This is an aspect of the game called neutral. It refers to a part of the game where players are trying to set themselves up in a position where they can safely hit each other. A constant flow of movement where baiting and approaching is everything. There are many different ways to win neutral. There isn't a specific way to gain an advantage on your opponent. The biggest way to win is by finding a certain counter to your opponent or by exposing a flaw in their gameplay and abusing it. Let me show you an example. I'm going to play ranked just for this and come out of hibernation, so if I die and I lose, then it's not my fault. I'm washed, I promise. Alright, so now that we're done playing that atrocious game mode, let's go ahead and try and break this down. The main point that I want to express here is how you can recognize an opponent's weakness and take advantage of it. This particular Fate's weakness was that she became very antsy to attack, and in turn, became very punishable upon whiff. Let's take a look at how I figured this out. Yeah, the first thing you want to do when you start is just to go for a weapon. Using a recovery here, I was able to beat out the Fate and land a small combo. Due to her lack of dodge, I assumed that she was an aggressive player and was instantly going to fall. Sorry about that. My friend was being absolutely stupid and ended up ruining the audio. Anyway, moving on. Stop! Due to her lack of dodge, I assumed that she was an aggressive player and was instantly going to follow me, so I retaliated with a falling Nair that she jumped out of. Everything until she got a weapon was basic weapon starving, but it wasn't until Orb that she showed her true habits. Take a look at this sequence right here. The Fate instantly attacks to go for my landing even though I proceeded to jump multiple times. Catching her whiffed attack, I'm able to punish with a Nair. This is a habit that's able to be abused. Seeing this, I decided to test it out multiple times, and it ends up working. Take a look at it here. And personally, I feel as if that one video of ranked wasn't enough, so I played another game of ranked to provide another example. Here, I was facing against a Plat Diana, and basically, her movement and option usage was a lot better, but she failed to recognize the SIGs that I can throw out, and because of that, I ended up getting some lucky situations to where I was able to hit her and change the tide of the game. Take a look here. Here's another example of how I used a SIG to catch the Diana off guard, which ended up getting a lucky stock. And these two games are simply examples of how finding out a weakness about your opponent can lead to big leads in game if exploited correctly. Every opponent will have multiple weaknesses that can be capitalized upon, even myself, and players better than me as well. Learning to find your opponent's weaknesses and mistakes as quickly as possible while adapting to your own and fixing them mid-game is what makes Brawlhalla such an intense game. It's something that can never truly be mastered, but it is possible to get better at it with time. Knowing your weapons, signatures, and spacing are all things that can greatly contribute to how you win neutral, with different playstyles needed for different opponents. There are many situations that you may find yourself in throughout the game, whether it's offstage, onstage, or camping on a platform, and these are all things that need to be improved upon no matter your level. But I digress. This is a Yumiko guide, not an all-around guide, and I'm not trying to waste your time anymore. I'm just simply stating the way I like to play and how effective trying to bait out weaknesses from opponents can be. But don't just take my word for it though, this is where the interviews come in. Thanks to the permission of some friends of mine, I actually got the chance to interview some of the best Yumikos in each respective region, whose names I will be listing here. I'm going to ask them the same simple question of, what are some strategies that you like to apply when facing a tough opponent with Yumiko? And give them some time to respond. Starting with someone you may have seen earlier in the video, we'll begin here. Alright, so, Adlai Sky, what are some strategies that you like to use when facing a tough opponent with Yumiko?
So it obviously all depends on which opponent I'm fighting and like which character they're using. So if it's like, if they're playing Orb Lance or like Axe, Scythe, and they're like just mashing a bit and like drifting away, usually it depends on which weapon I'm playing. So if they're just like drifting away and like just mashing, just trying to bait out an attack at me, I could either like fake out an attack and go in, like fake out an attack when I'm not even close to them, and then they try to throw out an attack, miss, and then I hit them, because dexterity can be used for some things, even though it's not as of a viable stat than most stats, but it still can be used. And another one I'd say is like for endgame and stuff, and like maps. So like a bad matchup with Bow would be like Small Mammoth and Crystal Temple with Bow, because Bow's force with its aerials are really bad. So I'd usually have to switch off of Bow during Crystal Temple and Small Mammoth games, and I'd have to switch to Hammer, because even though Bow aerials are really easy to hit, usually Bow aerials kill at minimum 270 damage, which is a really bad strategy, I'd say. So I'd always have to switch to Hammer, and I'd always just like Nair them, Sair, D-Light Sair, really easy kill options. And you'd like, even using Bow signatures, Yumiko Bow sigs are pretty I don't want to say bad, but like Bow end sig should only be used for getting back to stage, side sig should be used for like X pivoting only, in my opinion, and D sig can be used for something I like to do, which is a Bow dodge read, frame trap type thing, which is side light. And if they dodge in, you could D-sig, and then if they're like, this is specifically for weapons like Hammer, Sword, or Orb, where Orb Sidelight, Hammer D-Light, and Sword D-Light, it's low, and since Bow D-Sig on Yumiko, you can jump before you touch the ground, like the end frames are already over for your D-Sig, you can jump, Bow Sarah them, hit them into the D-Sig, and end light, and that's all a true combo. I hit that all the time, and it's a really good strength for, like, I'd say 40 damage, which is like 1/5 of, like, stock damage, which is really, really good, in my opinion. And that's all I'd say.
Alright, Steamy, so what are some strategies that you like to apply when facing a tough opponent with Yumiko?
Usually, when I'm fighting a pro player or like Java or Zakoi or something like that, I usually try to take advantage of what Yumiko does that other Hammer Legends don't. Like, D-Sig on Hammer is very good at catching like dodges in the air, and a lot of people that are used to fighting regular Hammer know that they can usually dodge freely in neutral without much thought. So I usually like take advantage of them thinking that and using D-Sig, which catches that. So I mainly use just the things on Yumiko that no other Hammer Legend has. Like, another example is people usually think that it's safe to jump after Sidelight on Hammer, and that I won't get much at White, but I can Sidelight if I catch a dodge, and then N-Sig Sair, D-Light Sair, and just in general, yeah. Yep. Yep. And then there's like, and then again, Yumiko Hammer can cover a lot of options that other hammers don't. Like against blasters, yeah, like diagonally, I can catch a blaster's GCD light with N-Sig and play into blasters better than if I was playing with another Hammer Legend. But for Bow, I usually like to, one specific thing that I do is Sidelight D-Sig, because that catches wake-ups, and a lot of people think it's like you can just wake up after Bow, but you can just Sidelight D-Sig and then they won't be able to wake up. So that's pretty much all that I do when I'm fighting a tough opponent. That's the special stuff that I do with Yumiko.
For the next couple of interviews, we're moving out of America. Taking some time to message some of the other top Yumikos in other continents, I was able to get them to respond, which again, I appreciate. They will also be credited below, with the only difference being that they are not native English speakers, or had trouble recording audio. Thus, I will be showing the screenshot of their texts and our conversations below here, and voicing a slightly smoother version of what they are saying down below. With that out of the way, let's continue. When facing a tough opponent, I immediately want to start a rushdown playstyle to overwhelm my opponents. I want to play aggressive with my hammer when I can, trying to build damage with either D-Light Sair or the Russian Mafia on a burn to dodge. When they're jumping in the air to counter me, or I find myself on the defensive, I will often throw out D-Sig on hammer, which, when landed, leads to easy Yumiko combos. Combos such as D-Sig Sair on Bow and D-Sig Recovery on both hammer and bow are both good damage builders and can sometimes even kill. One thing that can be thrown out here is a confirm that you can land off of D-Sig, which I will show below. D-Sig can also be thrown out safely in multiple instances as well. Here's a very effective way to use it, which can be very hard to punish. To do this, simply reverse pivot D-Sig when dashing off the edge. And lastly, this read is something that I enjoy using a lot. The damage buildup off of one read is insane and a huge optimization. The one thing that Yumiko struggles with is killing sometimes, but for that, I often look for a Stomp Sair to punish or the Downsig Mafia that I showed earlier. And that's it! Yumiko's D-Sig has a lot of utility options that I enjoy using. Personally, when I want to win, I find that playing passive and waiting for my opponent to attack so I can punish them works well. I also find that baiting people with D-Sig by throwing them when I'm safe works well because they have low recovery frames and set up a barrier to protect yourself, even on miss. This especially applies to Hammer D-Sig, which is safe to even the point where I feel that I can use it freely. Most high elo players that have played against a Yumiko that uses this move to the fullest potential can single-handedly tell you that it's not very fun to go against. Saber, what are some strategies that you use when facing a tough opponent with Yumiko?
So, more so than a strategy, it's more of an idea that I use. My personal thoughts is that Yumi players should get one basic idea down as soon as possible. The goal of playing Yumiko isn't for the player to have fun, but for the opponent to have as little fun as possible. Spam your hammer D-Sig, spam your hammer and Sig true combos, and most importantly, neutral doesn't exist. Only play off stage. It's not like you're gonna KO anyways.
冷やかしに来たのか?
Wow. Let's move on after hearing something like that. We've already heard too much. Thank you to all the Yumiko players who participated, however, I think it's time we switch things up. Instead of talking about what people like so much about Yumiko, we'll switch it up and see what the other half has to say about Yumiko. To keep it diverse, I interviewed the same amount of people at multiple ELO ranges, differing between low diamond to semi-pro, but all of them were the highest rank in Brawlhalla, giving them all a chance to briefly say what they hate the most about this character. Let's begin here. So, Eugene, what do you hate the most when fighting Yumiko?
Mostly just her weapons. I hate bow, I hate hammer. They're both broken. Like, and her D6s on either weapon are just so stupid. Cause like, you can literally do anything on a D6 on either weapon and it's true. Like, on bow, you have like D6 to recovery that kills at like light yellow. And you have a hammer D6, you can do that shit. And then, wait, that's the one that goes up, right? Yeah. Okay, you can do that to like Nair, and it kills that white. I'm not even kidding. Like, holy. Yes, it kills that white. I'm not even kidding. You can go in training right now and test it for yourself. I'm not even kidding. That shit kills that white. I don't get it. No. Orion is bad. No. Orion is bad. No. You have to remember. No. Look. As a level 87 Orion player, you have to realize that Orion is actually dog shit. You know why? Because Lance sucks. Okay, Lance sucks. First of all, Lance is just bad. And Spear, they nerf Spear like every patch for no reason. Like, why, man? What do you have to say to that?
Spear main detected, opinion rejected. So, class, what are some of the things that you hate the most when fighting a Yumiko?
Well, my personal gripes with the character are, just the complete area denial that happens when D-Sig on hammer is used. It's just absurd. You can't really get around it, and it has, well, you can get around it, but you just get hit by hammer D-Light, and with weapon throw, they can just dodge. So the biggest thing about that for me as well is just the fact that it has so many true combos. So it has a 3-hit. I think it's D-Sig, recovery, dare. That's true as well. That character is just completely based around neutral, and it has such a great presence. I think the fact that Yumiko's neutral is so powerful really kind of makes it so that Hammer's weak spot in neutral is just not there anymore. It's kind of broken. She needs nerfs. Yumiko's bow kit is also very underrated. That's it, though.
Alright, Pete, what do you dislike most when fighting Yumiko players?
It's probably just like the stall potential with D-Sig on hammer. It's just like with some weapons, when Yumiko throws out D-Sig, you literally can't like do anything except wait the Sig out, and it just resets the fight to neutral. Like with cannon, if you're using cannon against Yumiko on hammer, then like you can't approach her when she throws out the D-Sig because it blocks all the options. Same thing with some other weapons, but some weapons can get through the D-Sig, but that's like pretty much it. Some Yumiko mains just like spam that D-Sig, just like keep stalling. and waiting for the opponent to like run into it. And sometimes it's really annoying because you have to adapt your playstyle around it.
And you're talking specifically about Hammer D-Sig, right? Or-
Yeah, Hammer D-Sig. Bow D-Sig isn't as impactful as the Hammer one, I think.
Because it has a lot more recovery frames, but Hammer D-Sig
Yeah.
is really, really quick, right?
Yeah, it's really quick and it covers some grounded options, and then you have to like get all the way behind them.
Got you.
Gives you
Alright, so, Teskin, what are some things that you hate the most when fighting Yumiko?
Okay, so for me, when I go against like really good Yumiko players, a lot of them, like, the thing that annoys me the most is definitely like the Sig combos, Sig true combos. Like, sometimes half of them aren't even true, but like they hit like very consistently, like D-Light Ensig on Hammer, or like Ensig Nair or Sair on Hammer as well. Like a lot of those are some crazy combos, and like I don't see enough Yumiko players using them like at all. And I think if more Yumiko players use them, like, they would do a lot better. Like it's a good way to kind of choose out some more early kills and stuff and whatnot. So yeah.
Well, thank you for teaching the new generation of Yumikos to abuse that. It's in your own irritation.
Yep, I guess so. But hey, I mean, if more people do it, like it makes it easier for me to fight, you know? Like, because not enough Yumiko players do it. So
Alright, so, Jafardo, what do you hate the most when fighting a Yumiko player?
It's gotta be Hammer D-Sig. That move literally just delays the game for a good 4 or 5 seconds where nobody can do anything and everybody just has to wait, and then it goes away and you couldn't even punish them for doing it because there's no recovery frames and it's stupid. Not to mention, Yumiko has bow, which is just an abomination of a weapon. Like why it just, you can't punish that, no recovery frames, high dex bow to be specific. Just, you're not punishing Yumiko, it's just not really an option. She has Ensig on bow, which is a recovery option, so you harder to edge guard. And then you have you have high dex Hammer, which stupid Sair combos, stupid D-Light okay, and then Hammer Ensig, which just kills you. Like it's just a spiking sig that kills you for no apparent reason, because whoever coded Yumiko forgot to just not do stupid stuff. And it's just like, what is this legend? And then they just added Arcadia, which is just Yumiko 2. If they never made Yumiko, they would never make a stupid character like Arcadia, which does the exact same thing, but just with Spear, which is as annoying as high dex Hammer and high dex. I literally made Hammer. High dex Hammer is different. That weapon should not be in the game with high dex. Stupid ass combos off Sair, just side light, D-Light combos, just get it out of the game. That's what I hate most about Yumiko. I hate Yumiko.
And that concludes both sides of the interview. With all that out of the way, I think it's time to finally, and I mean finally, give some closure on the character and the video. We are almost at an hour after all. I think the last real topic to cover here about Yumiko would actually be some weaknesses she has. Off the top of my head, there are really only a few that I can think of, but are definitely attributes to her character that need to be played around. Most of these weaknesses are because of her stats, but should be explained anyway, so let's go. The first, most obvious weak point about Yumiko is that she has low defense. While she has a very strong neutral and has a lot of tools to help her hit the opponent, she is very prone to being killed at early healths, and this is not a character meant to be played aggressive and get into brawl-out fights with beefier characters like Thor or Bodvar. This means that on smaller maps, she can get killed off the side of the stage very easily with strong Sigs, or will die pretty reliably in light red health to other Sigs as well. Since this is a built-in weakness, there isn't much to do other than to recognize the hitboxes for moves that can kill you, and specifically play around the danger moves. Stuff like D-Light on Hammer, D-Light on Spear, and other moves like such are what you want to be concerned about, because being hit with non-killing moves won't be as much of a deal in helps like these. The second weakness I can think of lies in her attack with a base of 4 attack, and bow is one of her weapons. The 4 attack makes it obvious why she has a hard time killing, and while bow has a lot of moves that can kill, All aerials do not kill on stage until extremely late healths, with the best killing combo on bow being delayed recovery. Even this kills at very late healths, which makes killing your enemy quite the problem in Yumiko. The best advice I can give to overcome this problem is not to tunnel vision on killing, as that can make you frustrated and more punishable, but simply to switch to hammer and to look for punishes normally. Combos such as D-Sig Nair, D-Late Sair, or recovery offstage are very reliable ways to catch your opponents if he overextends and secure that stock while at the same time taking your own time. The last main weakness I can think about for Yumiko is something I explained before, and how her signatures are very situational. They're not something that covers horizontally like most conventional signatures, and that's both a strength and a weakness at the same time. While they're very good for covering angles that normal attacks don't hit, it can hinder Yumiko by taking away options for her to punish opponents where other characters could normally kill, and this is something that just needs to be played around. With time, it's very possible to even adapt and master this legend that's very underplayed for such a powerful character. And finally, I think here would be a good point to end it off. We covered a bunch of stuff, ranging from her SIGs and light attacks, to what people like and hate about her, and even a little bit of what she's bad at. As I finish up this script, it's currently the middle of May, and this video may even be out by June. But to the viewers who's out there, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing me talk about this character for almost an hour, put together by a bunch of people. This is a video that I'm finally glad to have out, and if I missed anything crucial, let me know in the comments. I'll try to respond to what I can see. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you all in the next upload.